in the technical sense, governance actually means a system for governing either an organisation or a country or a territory. What we actually mean by governance in a more real-world sense within a sporting context is the series of systems, policies and controls that govern the sport and the organisation. We mean compliance, we mean sticking to the rules, obeying the laws, and also obeying the rules and laws of our own sport. But more broadly than that, governance for me is also about the culture, the behaviour and the values of an organisation. It's not just a box ticking exercise about compliance, it's also about how the organisation is run and led, how people are included in decision making, and how we ensure that there's a genuinely positive culture which takes the duty of care of everyone within sport seriously. Sport is all about fair play, and sport is all about playing by the rules and about ethics and values. So I think it's absolutely essential that we have a clear understanding of that, that we codify it, and that we have mechanisms too to make sure that when people are not behaving and playing within the rules, that we have a way to actually call that out and to stop it happening. On a more pragmatic level, sport needs to know about governance for some much harder reasons. First of all, sport needs to comply with the law. Also, in most countries now, and certainly within the UK, there are a series of fairly stringent requirements around governance that, put simply, if you don't meet them, you don't qualify for public funding. So there are a range of political, ethical, moral, legal and financial reasons why sport needs to understand governance and make sure that it's well governed and well led. Well, actually, there are lots of different ways of breaking down categorizing governance. The definitions of governance that I often use to try to break these down to my clients and organizations that I work with are what I call hard governance and soft governance. Hard governance is all about the law, the rules, policies, procedures, your bank accounts, making sure that people are doing all of the things that they need to and following policy. Soft governance is much more about the way you behave, your values, the dialogue within an organization, how you make sure, for example, that members feel genuinely consulted and included in what your organization is doing. There are also a number of other ways of categorizing governance too. Typically, and within a British context, probably the two types that we're most familiar with are corporate law and company governance and charity governance. The sports sector in many ways has a particular challenge because sports governance borrows from both corporate law and corporate governance and non-profit governance. As well as that, sports in a unique position in that it's also subject to international governance as well, in a way that many other organisations won't be. So there are lots of different types of governance and lots of ways of defining it. But the core principles of actually operating with honesty, integrity, and put simply, trying to do the right thing should be common across all of those different types. Well, first of all, I think that the sports sector in the UK is actually very well governed and has improved in terms of its governance enormously over the last few years. So I think you need only look at the Code for Sports Governance published jointly by UK Sport and Sport England and the very high levels of compliance with it to see the vast majority of national governing bodies operating within the UK with very high standards of governance. The most famous example, and I'm going to go back to it, of bad governance within sport is in FIFA. I do think that situation is improving, but if you look back into the recent past under the leadership of Sepp Blatter, I think you can see all of the elements of bad governance there. Corruption, dishonesty, a lack of integrity, selfishness, and a lack of clarity about what the organisation is doing. All of those things, I'd say, are the classic ingredients of bad governance, and they lead to bad decisions too. So bad governance doesn't just matter in isolation. It's not just something that you can seal off and put in a box. If an organisation is badly governed, then it will adversely affect everything the organisation does at every level, reputational, financial, and in terms of delivery too.